What up, Cavs Nation? I'm your host, Ethan Sands, and I'm back with another episode of the Wine and Gold Talk podcast. I'm joined by your favorite beat reporter, Chris Fedor, and I think it's become a regular occurrence enough to this point that you guys know who's on the right side. Jimmy Watkins joining us from cleveland.com, the columnist himself. How you guys doing? I know, Chris, you've been traveling a little bit. Happy to be home?
Oh, man, are you kidding me? It's been great to be home. Spend time with the family, go to the park, go outside. It's been beautiful outside. So taking advantage of this gorgeous weather and this time home with the family before I have to leave again Thursday.
Yeah, that's a quick turnaround, but we're going to get to why you are home, obviously. Game 5 in Cleveland, Cavs, Magic. Jimmy, how are you doing? How was your weekend, other than, obviously, writing column for this crazy series that we got going on?
I'm a pig in mud right now, man. I'm planning my entire day around basketball games. I'm either watching them at my house or at friends' houses, at my dad's house. This is one of my favorite times of the year. Probably not getting outside as much as I would like to as a result, but happy we have all the hoops on.
Man, it is a wonderful time of the year. You got basketball, obviously you got baseball going on as well with the MLB kind of kicking up, but we are here to talk hoops. And today is another rendition of your favorite episode of each week, Hey Chris. And you guys came out in full force today. Chris kind of egged you guys on a little bit, gave you the opportunity to not only ask questions, but also to give your takes on how this series is going. We're going to start with the questions because I know Chris loves the chaos of everything that you guys, the subtexters is who I'm talking about, our subscribers, that you guys can become a part of by signing up for a 14-day free trial or going to cleveland.com/Cavs and clicking on the blue bar at the top. You know the gist of it, and we're going to get into some of the questions first. But, Chris, what was going through your head when you were like, I'm gonna see what these people are thinking? Because I'm telling you, there's so much going on.
It's the beauty of subtext, right? It's a chance to interact with a passionate Cavs fan base. So I'm obviously working on a piece for right ahead of Game 5 about whether or not J.B. Bickerstaff is losing the playoff chess match against Jamal Mosley, because, you know, one of the big topics in the locker room following Game 4 was about the adjustment that the Magic made. Going into Game 3, they put Wendell Carter Jr. in the starting lineup as opposed to Jonathan Isaac, and there was a belief from players in the Cavs locker room that had an impact on the series, a positive impact for the Magic, and it took away one of the advantages that the Cavs enjoyed in the first 2 games of the series. So a couple of the players brought up the fact of, hey, the Magic made their adjustment, and it was a smart adjustment, and it's worked out well for them. Now we're going to go back home. We're going to look at the film. We're going to dig deeper into the game plan and into this matchup against the Magic, and we're going to make our adjustment. And adjustment is a buzzword this time of year when it comes to the playoffs, and I always find it fascinating to just break down the whole discussion of adjustment or execution, right? Players or coaches, X's and O's, Jimmys and Joes, and what has actually gone wrong in the last couple of games for the Cavs, to me, goes beyond just simple adjustments. Like, yeah, the Carter move really, really helped the Magic. And that 5-man lineup for Orlando has completely dominated, especially to start games, especially to start third quarters, too. So, yeah, there's part of it of adjustments, but there's also, you know, guys on the Cavs not playing to their standard. And you saw that in the 2 games in Orlando. So I just wanted to get a pulse of the fan base of, okay, what's your feel going into Game 5? And if you could be a coach on JB's staff, since everybody is talking about adjustments, if you could be a coach on his staff, what kinds of things would you suggest in terms of adjustments? Because I think it's really easy to just say, well, the coach needs to make an adjustment. this team needs to make an adjustment. All right. So tell me realistically what that adjustment is. So I just asked Cavs fans to give their thoughts on that, and we got a lot of engagement, and it was terrific.
Man, oh man, did we get some engagement. All right now. So we're going to get into that a little bit later. We're probably going to get to, we got about 50 to 100 responses. I'm going to try and get to
Nice.
20 of those later. But we're going to get to the questions that we got from our subtext about, hey, Chris, right now. So this is a question from Evan in Lyndhurst, and this basically gets into a large topic that multiple different subtexters and subscribers have been asking the entire day. So good on you, Evan. You're thinking alike like most Cavs fans. And here we go. Would we, as in the Cavs, be better just playing Sam Merrill next to Donovan Mitchell? He can shoot better, move off the ball better, and is no worse on defense than Darius Garland. This is a take that is, like I said, not uncommon amongst the subtexters today. And Jimmy, I'm going to let you start. What do you think? Are the Cavs better off starting Sam Merrill next to Donovan Mitchell and benching Darius Garland?
That's a spicy one. I do think in small doses there is room for more Sam Merrill playing next to Donovan. I mean, or in theory, Darius just trying to space. There is a place for more Sam Merrill in this series, so that whoever is handling the ball has more room with which to operate on offense. Right. The biggest problem in the series right now is that the Cavs can't score. The Cavs are having trouble. They're not getting up enough. I mean, in Game 4, 17 3-point attempts is just like unheard of for 21st century basketball. They're not getting up enough 3-point shots. They're not making enough 3-point shots. So as a result, they are not forcing the Magic to respect their shooters as much as I feel like we're in a time machine right now talking about similar problems that we had this time last year. Yeah, I think I want to mitigate my response by saying yes, Sam Merrill, but the Darius, as I wrote a column about Darius last week, and I learned then, I've been learning all year, that Darius is a spicy talking point for this Cavs fan base right now. I don't know if it's the contract that he signed. I don't know if it's, I think maybe some of the, it's not just the turnovers, but the types of turnovers that he commits really rubs certain basketball fans the wrong way just because they're so careless. But man, he is a lightning rod amongst the fan base right now. So I think there's a middle ground here where, yes, there's a place for Sam Merrill in the series, but at the same time, man, I think part of the Darius conversation is his back. It has to be. Right? I know he's been below his level all season, but I mean, he just looks like a shell of himself right now, and that I have to think some of that is health related, even if the Cavs don't want to talk about it.
So I want to let Chris get into his take on this because we've talked about this all season and how fans have thought that Darius should have gone to the bench at the halfway point or when he was coming back from his broken jaw. So that's been a talking point that we've had all season.
Let's say that. That's ridiculous.
100% ridiculous.
100% ridiculous.
But he is a member of this core. He is a franchise pillar. You're not taking him out of the starting lineup in Game 5. You're not panicking like that and making that kind of move in Game 5 of a series where you're favored, where you have shown an ability to be great at home and the Magic have shown an ability to suck on the road. No, that's not happening. The Cavs need Darius to be great. The Cavs need Darius and Donovan to be great together. And I'm with you, Jimmy. I think we talked about this on the previous podcast. There's definitely a place for Sam Merrill in this rotation. And I do think it's something that the Cavs are going to explore going into Game 5. But there's this belief that these moves are easy, right? That they aren't delicate. Every move has an impact, whether it's short-term or long-term. And if you believe in Darius the way that the Cavs believe in him, you don't wreck his confidence. You don't mess with his head going into Game 5 of a pivotal series by taking him out of the starting lineup. It's just a ridiculous idea. But that doesn't mean that you can't play Sam Merrill. You can play Sam Merrill. And I think there is room for Sam to play alongside Donovan. Look, Darius has been coming out of the game around the 7-minute mark of the first quarter or the 5-minute mark of the first quarter, because obviously JB Bickerstaff is staggering Darius Garland and Donovan Mitchell, because Darius is technically the starting point guard and Donovan is essentially the de facto backup point guard. So you're trying to split those guys' minutes, and when he comes out at the 7-minute mark or the 5-minute mark, then you can go to Sam Merrill. You can put him in the game alongside Donovan, take some eyeballs off of Donovan, take some defensive pressure off of Donovan, create some space, create some gravity, allow him to attack a defense that's not entirely focused on him. And like I said in the previous podcast, Donovan at this point, given what he's dealing with and given how much attention the Magic are putting on him, including Jalen Suggs, who is just a hound on the defensive end of the floor, Donovan needs a little bit of help. Donovan needs this coaching staff and his teammates to create space for him that he can't create for himself in this current state. And I think Sam Merrill does that. But here's the thing, like every single decision that JB Bickerstaff makes with his lineup and his rotation means somebody else has to go or somebody else has to lose minutes. Because that's just the reality of the situation. So if you want to play Sam Merrill, cool. I can understand that. But understand that means Karis LeVert loses minutes, Isaac Okoro loses minutes, Max Strus would have to lose minutes. Those kinds of guys who are very, very important to the Cavs' success during the regular season and who have earned a longer leash than some of these other guys, Sam Merrill playing would have to come at the expense of one of those guys. And maybe it's Isaac, right? If the Cavs are focused on trying to elevate their offense, get more three-point shots up, be more dynamic at that end of the floor, then maybe the defensive-minded guy who is still, at this point, a developing offensive player, loses a few minutes here or there.
And I wanted to touch on rather quickly what you were talking about, Jimmy, and Darius' injury, and obviously you can't take that away from him. He's not playing at 100%. But when you also look in the same conference in the Indiana Pacers and have Tyrese Halliburton, who's also playing with a back injury, and he had 24 points in their win against the Bucks the other night. And he's averaging 16 points per game, basically, in the postseason this year, while Darius Garland is averaging 12. And I think this is a conversation that we're going to continue to have about what is expected of Darius Garland. And because obviously we know that Donovan Mitchell is a superstar, so we hold him to a higher standard. What is the standard that we are holding Darius Garland to? And I think that's a question that we're going to get into, especially in this podcast, a little bit later.
Okay, but there's another layer to this whole thing. And I think people have forgotten this, okay? And this is not an excuse. It's providing context for why a guy may be struggling or why a guy doesn't look the same as he did a year ago or 2 years ago. Darius Garland went through a massive on-court trauma. He fractured his jaw, folks. His jaw was wired shut for 4 weeks. Like, that is something that impacts you. That is something that could have a negative effect when you're driving to the basket and you're trying to play through contact. Like, that's got to be, in some level, like, it takes a little bit of time to get over some kind of injury like that, right? Whether you think you're fully healed or not, whether you think you're fully over it from a mental standpoint or not, trauma takes time to heal. It's not like you snap your finger and say, oh, I'm good. Like, next time I drive to the basket, I'm just going to take a hit to the face and be fine. You know what I mean? Like, those kinds of things can impact you. The other thing is, Darius has dealt, since basically the second half of the season, with a personal tragedy. His grandmother passed away, It was something that weighed on him heavily. It's something that weighed on his family heavily. And Darius is a big-time family man. And he has seen the pain that loss has caused to his family members and to his mother specifically. And there was a time earlier this year where Darius, after a game, flew back home to be at the funeral and then flew back to the Cavs game, then flew back home to be with his family and support his family and provide that level of support, and then flew back to play a game for the Cavs. Like, that is something that he hasn't had the full time to process because it's been a grind of the season. And he's had to focus on basketball, and he's had to focus on the Cavs getting to the playoffs. So he hasn't had the time to grieve a significant loss in his own personal life. And again, that's not an excuse. People deal with things. These are human beings. They have emotions. They have things going on in their own lives. And it's up to them to try and find the best way to cope and compartmentalize. But if we're being honest about it, it's not always easy. Just because they make millions of dollars, just because they're professional NBA players, it's not always easy to deal with those emotions, especially during a grind of a season with the pressure that is on this team and that is on him. And I think that just helps provide maybe, possibly, a little bit of context to the whole Darius Garland situation in saying that, you know, he is one of the most important players to the Cavs. He is a guy who really helps lift the offense when it comes to his decision-making, his passing, his ability to break down a defense, his shooting from the outside. And the Cavs need more than 12 points a game from Darius Garland if they're going to win this series against Orlando.
All right, next question is from Ben Y in Akron. He asks, straight up, what is wrong with Donovan? And what happens to JB if the Cavs win this series in 7 but still suffer 3 embarrassing losses on the road? First and foremost, I think we can start with Donovan is hurt, even though he wants to say that he's 100%. Donovan, on multiple occasions, on countless practices, since he's been back from his knee injury that has had him out multiple games during the regular season, has said on, again, multiple occasions that he is 100%, or it's the playoffs. We got to play. So his knee injury that he looked to have re-aggravated earlier this series is clearly bothering him. 1. 2, the Cavs are seeing blitzes again like they saw last season. They're seeing double teams, and they're seeing 2 on the ball that is preventing Donovan Mitchell from getting open and creating open shots for himself. And he's not getting any help from anybody else outside of Jared Allen, pretty much. So, with all that being said, Jimmy, what else is wrong with Donovan?
I think the injury point is an interesting one. There's a through line between Darius and Donovan here. And the point I'm making here is that sometimes these guys don't do themselves any favors. I understand what Donovan is trying to do when we ask him, how are you feeling? And he says, fine. He's setting the tone of no excuses. He's being a leader, really, is what he's doing. And sometimes in these cases, they're also trying to protect themselves a little bit, right? Like if another team, like, this is cutthroat professional sports, man. Like if another team knows that you're injured, they might try to exploit your injury on defense, or like in some rarer cases, maybe give you a nudge in the spot where they know it hurts. Like that's a real thing that happens. If people are looking for every inch out there. The other thing about Donovan, I mean, it's not like, okay, the blitzes hurt his offensive production because sometimes it forces the ball out of his hands, right? That also just the act of being blitzed, or even like when they're switching guys on them, like when they were switched, like when he would drive against Isaac in the earlier parts of the series, that just takes a lot of energy, man. Like some of the, like we take those saucy, smooth dribble series for granted a lot because Donovan makes it look so easy. But man, the reality is, like, every dribble takes a little bit of energy out of you. And Donovan is, in some of these cases, working really hard to get some of these shots off. And I can't, like, if you see a first half, second half split, like all the energy that Donovan put into having that incredible first half in Game 4, that is not an isolated incident. Sure, there's halftime, but like halftime is 10 minutes long or however long it is, and then he has to come back out, and we're expecting him to do it again or do something like it. Now there's a difference. There's a difference between like cutting him some slack for not scoring 18 points every half and then him coming up short and scoring 0, taking 4 shots, like he said today. That can never happen. But like, I think that could be another symptom of fatigue. It's playoffs. You play more minutes. His ramp up from the knee injury, the ending stretch of the season was kind of weird, right? Like he's playing, then he's not, then he's trying to ramp it back up, and the Cavs were trying to thread a tight needle there. So there's a lot going on with Donovan. It's the knee, it's the way they're defending him. It's playoff intensity drains energy from you.
Hey, can we also just say, like, guys have bad games? I mean, this is the NBA. It's really, really tough to be great every single night, right? It's really tough to be great every single quarter, every single minute that you play. And, guys struggle at times. And I think Donovan is struggling right now. I think his body is not allowing him to move with the level of explosiveness that he's used to, with the level of athleticism that he's used to. And I think he can't be the same physical force that he was before this knee issue. So he's trying to find other ways to still make an impact, still get his shots off, still score the basketball. I don't think it's any coincidence, guys, that the best game that he has played in this series was after he had 5 days off, basically. He got an extended rest. He got extended recovery time before Game 1. He came out in Game 1. He looked spry. He looked athletic. He had that thunderous throwdown in transition. But it's been tighter recovery time in between games as this series has progressed. And he re-aggravated his knee in Game 3, early in Game 3, by the way. The next day at practice, he was wearing a protective sleeve, one that he had not worn up until that point, one that looked very similar to the one that Jalen Suggs was wearing, because it was more trauma to an already injured knee. And it's not a situation where it was going to cause him to miss time. It's not a situation where he missed practice or he hasn't been able to participate in shoot-arounds, but it's something he has to constantly manage. Every time he checks out of the game, he goes back to the tunnel and he rides the bike. That is a new thing that has happened in the second half of this season since the injury popped up to his knee. He wasn't doing that in the first half of the season. So this is clearly something that he and the Cavs are still managing. This is clearly something that is less than 100%. It's even worse after what happened early on in Game 3, and I think you see that as well. But I think there's also the overarching thing of Donovan hasn't made shots. He's gotten 20 open or wide open three-pointers in this series against the Magic. You know how many of those 20 open or wide open threes he's made? 5. He's made 5. This is Donovan Mitchell. This is a guy who shoots at 36-37% from three-point range. And when he's getting the open opportunities, the rare ones against a really stifling defense, he's not capitalizing on those.
36-37% on very difficult attempts. Right.
Over the course of a season.
We need to grade that on a curve. Yeah.
Whatever, yeah. We're talking about open or wide open. A defender not within 4 feet of him. 20 of his 28 three-pointers in this series have been classified as that. And he's only made 5 of those. So, is regression coming in a positive way for Donovan? Is shooting variance going to be in the side of Donovan and the Cavs going into Game 5? I guess we'll see. But, if you give an elite player those kinds of looks, you feel pretty good about the chances, right?
You should. I want to. Obviously, like I said, we got more questions about Donovan and Darius, so I'm going to stay on Donovan for 2 more questions, and then we'll move on to somebody else because I feel like we're on a roll here. But the next question comes from Jeff in Brecksville, who says, "Hey Chris, given Donovan's struggles, especially in last 3 playoff years, should he choose to leave, is the market going to be less robust for him? Clearly, the Knicks don't need him."
Yeah, I mean, maybe the Knicks don't need him, but there are plenty of other teams around the NBA that would line up to try and get somebody the caliber of Donovan Mitchell. And look, I mean, I think any team around the NBA, I think any person around the NBA, guys, can convince themselves of something when it comes to Donovan, right? They can look at some of these playoff struggles and say, hey, maybe that had to do with a wonky fit between him and Darius Garland. Maybe that had to do with the fact that the Cavs were playing 2 non-shooting bigs that took away some of the space and made it easier on an opposing defense, right? You can convince yourself of any argument, whatever you want to make. Donovan is a great player. Donovan is a top 20 player in the entire NBA, maybe top 15, depending on how you rank these guys. At one point this year, Donovan was legitimately in the MVP conversation, and he belonged in that MVP conversation. He was an all-star. He's led his team to the playoffs every single year that he's been in the NBA. Teams are not going to turn their back on that level of talent. Teams are not going to say, a guy who is that capable, that talented, in the prime of his career, who some people are talking about could potentially be the face of the NBA or somebody who grabs the torch from LeBron, from Steph. The market is going to be robust for Donovan if the Cavs go that direction, if they get some kind of indication from him that he's not comfortable with signing a contract extension, if they get some kind of indication that there's an offer out there that completely blows them away. You think Miami wouldn't make a huge offer for Donovan Mitchell? You think Brooklyn wouldn't make a huge offer for Donovan Mitchell? You think a team like San Antonio that's looking for a running mate star for Wemby wouldn't make a huge offer for Donovan? If a team does not have a bona fide star already on the roster, if a team is looking to take the next step as an organization, they're going to look at Donovan as a guy who can do that, because he has shown that he can do that despite some playoff shortcomings.
Yeah, man, look, there's I know that Donovan
there aren't
hasn't
a lot of Donovan Mitchells out there.
Right. I know that Donovan hasn't scraped the ceiling yet that he wants to hit as a player or as a postseason performer, but man, there are a lot of steps that happen in the NBA before that point, and there are a lot of teams looking to make those steps, and Donovan Mitchell has proven that he can get you this far. I mean, like, he's made the play. Not only has he made the playoffs every year, he's made the playoffs every year as the primary offensive engine for his team. That's from his rookie season. He was the player around which the Utah Jazz offense operated. From that point forward, he has proven you can win 50 games with Donovan Mitchell as your best player. There are a lot of teams searching for that kind of player. And to Chris's point about teams like Miami, like, it doesn't have to be like Donovan may leave this experience in this hypothetical world where he's leaving this experience and think, maybe I just need to be a 1A 1B guy. Like, maybe teaming up with Jimmy Butler is the right move. Maybe Donovan's got a buddy in the league. You know, maybe I don't know who Donovan's friends are in the league, but like, Brooklyn is a blank canvas basically. So if you like New York, which we know he does, and you want to, the Nets have proven to us in the past. Maybe they've learned something from this, but they've proven to us in the past that they are willing to cede a little control to the players for their roster decisions. Did work out with KD and Kyrie, but Mikal Bridges is already a nice third banana. If Donovan wanted to grab a second or first A banana, whatever, hit a guy on equal footing with him and go over there, now you got something in Brooklyn already, and they've got a ton of picks. Who do they have? Houston's picks and Phoenix's picks. something like that. Brooklyn picks. The draft vortex can mess with you a little bit. The point is,
we'll get to that at a different time.
The point
we'll get to that at a different time.
Brooklyn is something that it could be whatever Donovan wants, and there are, I don't know, 25. Basically, if you don't already have a core that you believe can get to the conference finals, you're interested in Donovan Mitchell.
My thing is what me and Chris have said a lot on this year's podcast about Donovan Mitchell and the New York theory. More than likely he doesn't want to go to Brooklyn if he has a choice, because that's the second New York team. That's not the Lakers, it's the Clippers. It's not the Knicks, it's the Nets. Yeah. But this next question, and I'm trying to refrain from all of these if, ands, or buts questions that more so will be answered after the series or the season is over, whichever comes first. And this one comes from Lloyd from Mayfield Heights, and I think it's warranted to ask this question. If the Cavs lose to Orlando, and like I said, this is probably the only if, ands, or buts question we're going to get to today. Fine. Donovan continues his playoff woes. Should he still be considered a franchise player? And should the Cavaliers consider trading him? My thinking is if he can't be the number one player on a playoff team, why not trade him instead of re-signing him and start over again? Or trade Darius Garland, get some assets, and hope Mobley ascends to his suggested ceiling. It doesn't appear this backcourt is working, so trade whoever gets you the most value. I need to be really, really honest, and I think I've said this a couple times, but I don't know if I've said this on this podcast. It is going to be extremely hard to trade Darius Garland if that is what the Cavs see as the best fitting option. Because a lot of teams do not want to pick up that contract, or the Cavs don't want to just shove all that money down their throats and give him away for whoever knows not as much, especially if teams are looking at what he did this playoffs and him coming off the injury season and all of those things. So I don't think Darius Garland is a player that the Cavs could trade this offseason, especially with everything going on. And also his humongous contract. But
you have to account for something, though, Ethan. You have to account for the other ancillary pieces that would be attached to him and how appealing those are for a team. There is a spicy trade out there if somebody wants to actually talk about it. And I'm not sure that either team would do it. In fact, I don't think the two owners would do it with each other because they hate each other's guts. But there's a Darius Garland, Evan Mobley for Kevin Durant trade out there, right?
Oh, God. Chris Bomb.
Well, I'm not saying that is something that, has sourcing attached to it. But if you think about what Phoenix is missing and what Phoenix needs, and you think about the Cavs roster constructed, how do you completely dismiss that general idea? Like I said, it's spicy, but I would not be surprised if other people start talking about that, given Phoenix's situation and given what the belief around the NBA is when it comes to the pairing of Donovan Mitchell and Darius Garland.
And I like what Jimmy said earlier about the Donovan Mitchell 1A, 1B star kind of thing, because he is a guy that feels like you said, Jimmy, and like we said, he's made it to the playoffs, and every year he's a 50-win regular season guy. He is a quote-unquote regular season player up until this point. And having another star, obviously Rudy Gobert was a defensive star. He didn't do a whole lot offensively for the Utah Jazz. And obviously Donovan Mitchell doesn't have the biggest offensive weapons on the Cavs right now. So maybe a more offensive scheme player as his running mate, who knows? But Jimmy, what are your thoughts on what Lloyd asked about Donovan trade rumors, Darius trade rumors, or whatever else?
So I agree that now is probably not the best time to tell people to make their best offer for Darius Garland. Let's say that. Actually, if when you take the totality of what Darius has been through this year, I don't know if I always liked Darius, and I think you could find a GM who could talk themselves into the vision. It's just like the value just isn't going to be what it was when he was at his peak because of this. They're going to use Darius's broken jaw and his bad back and all that stuff. They're going to use that as a negotiating tactic, which is evil, but that's the way this stuff goes. So yeah, it's a tough time to be talking Darius Garland trades right now. Though I don't think that it's not like a contract you have to attach stuff to. Like there's this guy that still has value that you can still get real assets for in return. The logical piece is Donovan because you're gonna get more return for Donovan. However, I think what a lot of GMs have argued this point about trading stars before is like it's like I don't know if you guys have ever seen Family Guy, but they're talking about you can have this boat or you can have the mystery box. And Peter goes, Peter and Lois are the couple, and Lois, the wife, goes, well, we should take the boat. And Peter goes, whoa, Lois. The mystery box could be anything. It could even be a boat, right? So if you're trading Donovan Mitchell, ideally you're looking for another Donovan Mitchell in return, just with more cost control, or you're looking for the next Donovan Mitchell, or you're looking for like an 8th grade Donovan Mitchell in one of these like 2028 draft picks or pick swaps, whatever, right? That's the tricky part there. This is not as what ify as some of the other ones though, because I think part of the question was if the Cavs lose this series. If the Cavs lose the series, it may not be their decision to trade Donovan Mitchell, which is another complicating factor in all of this, because if Donovan Mitchell requests a trade, the Utah exit was kind of weird in that we all knew he wanted to leave, but he didn't officially request a trade, but we knew he wanted to go to the Knicks, but he went to Cleveland and he stuck it out with Cleveland. But I think particularly if he decides that this experience isn't for him and this isn't the experience that he handpicked, I would think he is more likely to put together one of these famous superstar lists where I will not sign an extension unless you trade me to place X, Y, or Z, and that makes the Cavs' task of trading him even more difficult. It's a tangled web we're dealing with here.
It is, and I think the other thing, it comes down to this, if we're talking about this if scenario playing itself out, if the Cavs flame out in the first round again, if they blow a 2-0 series lead against a Magic team that they were favored against, that they were considered the better team against, if that happens, then it's not just one thing for the Cavs to consider this offseason in terms of change, right? It's not just, well, we'll change the coach, JB Bickerstaff, and we'll keep everything else intact. No, it's the pairing of Darius and Donovan goes under the microscope, right? The pairing of Jared Allen and Evan Mobley goes under the microscope. The roster construction as a whole is going to go under the microscope. So it's not just the coach will be gone and then that'll solve everything. No, I think this would be the kind of loss that would lead to primary decision makers inside this organization saying, we got to look at everything. And I think there could be an argument that would be made inside the organization about the pairing of Darius and Donovan not working. And here's another layer to this whole thing. And we've talked about this coming into the playoffs. Donovan wants to compete for championships. Donovan believes that he is ready to compete for championships. Donovan believes that he's ready for a level of judgment as a star player that comes this time of year. Not in the regular season, this time of year. Conference finals. That's what he told me on the record in that exclusive interview following the night that the Cavs officially clinched a playoff spot. Right? So Donovan, and Donovan's got to be better in this series, and he'll be the first one to admit that, and he has admitted that. But Donovan is looking for a level of readiness across this roster. Are these guys the kinds of guys that I'm willing to commit to long term? Is JB Bickerstaff the right coach to get me to the level that I want to get to? Is Darius Garland the right running mate to get me to the level that I want to get to? Is Evan Mobley ready for the playoff basketball that I envision for the next 5 years? right? That's something that he is asking himself. That is something that he is evaluating as this entire playoffs goes on. What if Donovan goes to the front office following this year? And I'm not saying that he's going to, but we're talking in what ifs, right? What if Donovan goes to the front office following this playoff series and says, you know what, Darius isn't ready. That's not the right running mate for me. Find somebody else. What if that's something that happens? What if the Cavs just say, nah, Donovan. We're going to keep the roster intact or something along those lines.
What they say is, here's an extension. You want to sign it?
Sign the extension.
We'll do whatever you want to sign this extension.
Right.
Okay. Now we're going to reel it back into reality and reel it back into this series. And
we have to. No thoughts on my spicy Kevin Durant take?
Yes, I love the Kevin Durant trade. I love Kevin Durant as the offseason trade fodder, basically because the Suns don't have another choice, right?
Yeah, they can't trade Beal.
Right. No one's taking Beal, and Beal, like, who's Beal approving a trade? Who's he approving a trade to? Like, I don't know. Devin Booker is the guy that Phoenix wants to be. You know, they want to eventually. Phoenix wants to build a statue of Devin Booker outside the arena. Although I already saw. Seriously, that's their guy. That's their franchise guy. That's their guy that they want to build around. So they don't want to move him. Maybe he would want to be moved. I don't know, but that's not the plan. Again, it goes like, does trading for Kevin Durant make Donovan Mitchell sign an extension is one of my questions. And is Kevin Durant going to be happy Kevin Durant, or is he going to be moody Kevin Durant from the last year of the Warriors season? That's what I want to know about that.
Here's my thought about this. Kevin Durant has lived with narratives his entire career. And to go to the place that LeBron James basically built and say, I'm going to finish my career here. I'm going to, quote unquote, end my legacy here. Potentially. I don't think I think he's pretty tired of all the things that people have said about him already. So I don't know if he would want to go into the situation where you already are in kind of the shadow of LeBron James.
It's not his choice. That's the beauty about a trade. Damian Lillard wanted Miami. Damian Lillard said he wasn't going anywhere other than Miami. Guess what? He went to Milwaukee. If you're somebody that doesn't have a no-trade clause in your contracts, what are you supposed to do? You're not going to sit out a whole season, right? You're a competitor. You love basketball. You've got an opportunity to play with Donovan Mitchell. What are you going to do? Go to China and play?
It's also not like...
It doesn't work that way.
It's not like Kevin Durant is like a franchise son anywhere, really. I mean, like, if you had, obviously, if you're going to connect him with one franchise, it would be the Thunder. Yeah. He kind of stabbed the Thunder in the back by leaving them. Not kind of. He left them for the team that they lost to in 7 games in the Western Conference Finals and made the league way less fun for 4 years. Yeah. So, yeah, that, like, I don't know that he's kind of a man without a band anyways. So, like, what's one more move at this point? Like, who cares, man? And the Cleveland fan base, which, by the way, obviously doesn't like Kevin Durant very much at all right now.
Exactly.
Like, they are. But you bring a championship, you're forgiven. You're forgiven. You're obviously not on the LeBron level, but like, if the Cavs are stuck in the first round, then Kevin Durant shows up and they start winning big in the playoffs, completely alters the perception of Kevin Durant in this city.
Okay, moving on from Chris's spicy fake trade run.
Phoenix has to do something, man. That's all I'm saying.
All I could think about when he said that was when we were talking about trade potentials in the middle of the season before the trade deadline, and Chris goes, start up the train engine, start up the train machine.
Love it. Love it.
Feels like we're doing that all over again. But, because I know you want to get to the chaos of what you created with your question, Chris, and I have to ask one more question from the subtexters to get there, and we're already at 45 minutes into the podcast. So, if we keep going into the fake trade stuff, we're going to be here forever. So, I'm going to do this really quickly, and then we'll get to the chaos that you created. And then, maybe, if you're not tired enough, we'll come back to it.
All right.
All right. Glenn from Rocky River asks, the Dean Wade injury just seems off somehow. Coming close upon a personal leave from the team, is there more of a story here? Okay, multiple things. Let's take a seat and talk about this because Dean Wade left for personal reasons. Chris, I don't know if you're going to hate me for saying this, but Donovan Mitchell confirmed that he had a child, that Dean Wade had a child. Mm-hmm. So he was away with his family, his new family, being a father, and then came back, and in the first practice coming back, hurt his knee.
Yep.
What were you going to say, Chris?
No, that's it. Nothing.
Okay. And then, so he comes back, hurts his knee, and obviously it was more severely injured than he had originally thought. Went and got MRI testing and imaging done. Nothing was shown structurally wrong. And then still wasn't healing right, still wasn't feeling better, wasn't on the court yet. Up until 2 weeks ago, maybe it was even just a week ago, where we first saw him on the court as after practice or shoot around, not even participating in the actual practice, with a knee sleeve or knee brace on his knee, and he was doing dribble drills, and now he's starting to get standard shots up, but not really motion shots, just still shots. And then the report came out that Dean Wade was going to be out for an indefinite period, and they keep not telling when he was going to come back and things of that nature. So I can only tell you that he was not at practice today or after practice from what I saw. And there has been no updates up to that. I mean, even before he came back, because I missed this part, even before he came back to the court, he was doing anti-gravity work on a treadmill,
right,
and something else. So that's really it. Like, he's been working his way back. Dean Wade is a kind, caring person that knows how much he impacts this team. Obviously, he understands that the Cavs would love to have him out there as a 4, and as we talked about on this podcast, that would give another dimension to this team, so they would not have to keep shoving Georges Niang out there as unproductive as he has been on the offensive end. It also just brings a better defensive player than Georges Niang onto the court, but right now they don't have that. And we've also talked about on this podcast how those different rotations have been something the Cavs have been looking at and what difference they could have had if they had Dean Wade available. But that's simply not the case. Chris, I know you have more inside sources than I do, being here a lot longer. Do you have any other information on Dean Wade as of today?
Just everything that I've been saying when it comes to Dean. Like, everything's just hope. We hope he's ready for X series. We hope he's ready if the Cavs get past the Orlando Magic in round 1. We hope that he's ready for Boston or Miami, whoever it is, in round 2. The sense that I get is everything, even before the Cavs officially ruled him out for the remainder of the Orlando series, and that was so that JB didn't have to continue to answer questions about Dean and his status and continue to say, I don't know. It's all about how he heals. It's all about how he progresses. He has done very little basketball-related activity, and I do believe that the Cavs know how valuable he is, and they know he can be an asset in the Boston series or the Miami series, whoever it would be in the second round, if the Cavs get that far. But nobody has been willing or able to guarantee his availability in that series, because this is something that is lingering. This is something that has prevented him from doing, like I said, any major basketball-related activity. And we're talking about playoff basketball right now. And we're talking about if he were to come back, it would be after 6 weeks, 7 weeks. That's a long time to miss and then just thrust yourself back into playoff basketball. So I do think even if he starts to feel right, even if his knee progresses and he's able to do more basketball-related activities, I do think it's going to have to be a gradual build-up to the point where he has to do a lot of other things on the court before JB feels comfortable about giving him meaningful minutes in a playoff series. Because there's a difference. We've talked about this a number of times. There's a difference between being healthy enough just to play and being effective while you're out there, and a team and an organization and a coach believing that you can be an asset in the state that you're in. And I'm not sure how Dean shows that to JB at this point, coming off such a long layoff.
It's not just that. Like even if JB gets to the point where it's like, okay, we're ready to put Dean out there. Now Dean has to regain his confidence at game speed, right? Like we saw completely different injury last year with
in the NBA, possibly.
Exactly, completely different injury, completely different situation last year with the shoulder. But like even once as Dean got back and healthy, like it took him a while. He never really found it again. Like he never regained his confidence last season. This again, knee is different from shoulder, but that's another element to this. And I would just say I obviously don't know anything about the state of Dean Wade's left knee, but to the fans, I know people love a conspiracy, but like, you know how they say it's not a science, it's an art? Sometimes science is an art, Sometimes injuries are just like, I don't know, man, we'll see. And then we see.
Yeah. Right, because like injuries are like snowflakes. They aren't the same size. They don't last as long as others, right? It just varies. And like some knee sprains take 4 to 6 weeks, and then other ones take 6 to 8 weeks, and then other ones take 8 to 12 weeks. And for some guys, they heal quickly. Some guys don't heal as quickly. Some knee injuries are easy to diagnose, and you figure out a treatment plan, and you go from there. Other ones may be a little bit more complicated, and you try different treatments first until you actually find one that actually works, and that's kind of the case of what happened here with Dean Wade, and that maybe has contributed to how long it's taken for him to recover and get back on the court. So there are just a variety of different factors when it comes to injuries. And it's not like you just say, injury, specific timeline, okay. No, it doesn't work that way.
All right. This is the question that we are going to start with from Chris's raging chaos that he created with his turning the page thing. And this is only a question because the subtexter turned back the questioning to them on us. Mm-hmm. I don't know. We're just going to figure it out together.
Okay.
Hey, Chris and Ethan. Earlier this year, I asked if the Cavs were putting in new stuff on offense for the playoffs. And you answered, of course. Well, have you seen anything new? I haven't.
Here's the problem. And I don't mean this in a mean way, but basketball fans, they don't really know every single set that is run by a team, right? They don't know every X and O. It's very different. And I think there are a lot of people that do these film breakdowns of what happens in a playoff series. And there have been many when it comes to the Cavs and the Magic. And some of these people are praising the Cavs for their creativity on offense, for the different things that they're running. The double drags, the horn sets, the hammer sets, the pin downs, the two-man game between Max Strus and Evan Mobley, or Max Strus and Jarrett Allen. So it's not like the Cavs are just going out there saying, hey, high pick and roll every single time. There are other intricate things that they're doing within a set on an offensive possession that maybe the casual observer doesn't see, maybe the casual observer doesn't know. I think we can all admit that the Cavs offense needs to be better. I think we can all say that the Cavs have to find a way to score 100 points at some point in this series. But it's not like, they're doing nothing on the offensive end of the floor, or they haven't introduced new sets, or they're not doing creative things on the offensive end. They're creating quality shots at various points. We already talked about how many wide open shots Donovan Mitchell has gotten. In game 2 and 3, or game 3 and 4 combined in Orlando, the Cavs as a team took 51 total threes. 43 of those were wide open or open. Like, the offense is good enough to create those looks. The offense is dynamic enough to create those looks. I don't know that it's entirely a scheme thing, and I don't know that it's a situation where, like, just because you're not seeing it, because you don't necessarily know what you're looking for, doesn't mean that they aren't doing it. And I mean that in the nicest way possible. Because coaches know more than us, right? Coaches have different sets that we're not fully aware of, that we don't fully understand. They use terminology that we don't fully understand. Because basketball, at times, can be a complex thing, especially on the offensive end of the floor. So you may not be seeing it because you don't actually know what you're supposed to be looking for. Again, in the nicest way possible.
It's funny that, that what you said, Chris, about coaches know more than us about basketball. Duh, right? I don't know that a lot of fans look at it that way. Last week I saw Fox Sports 1's Nick Wright went into a Twitter Spaces, which, like, good on you, man. Like, you're a braver man than I am. But he went in there to talk to Warriors fans, and he just, like, all right, let's establish some common ground here. Like, we all agree that, Steve Kerr knows more about basketball than you guys, or knows your team better than you guys, right? They're like, no! It's like, all right, well, what is there to talk about at this point? Like, I don't know what to tell you anymore. I would say this about the Cavs offense. It helps to make your shots.
Yeah.
I know it sounds like a novel concept, but, like, a lot of the expectations that we had for the Cavs offense, why it would be different, why it would be easier, why it would flow better in the playoffs, is they signed 2 guys who have reputations as great shooters. They take a lot, and more importantly, I was fascinated by their philosophy that Chris wrote about during the season, where it's like they were more interested in your 3-point attempts than your 3-point percentage, because your willingness to shoot it is as important, if not more important, than how often it goes in, right? And that is kind of, I don't want to, like, put this buzzword on. I know people will tune out as soon as I say it, but there's kind of an analytics slant to that, right? Because it's based on large sample size. Even if Max Strus is, he shoots, I think it was, I don't know, let's say Max Strus shoots league averages, a little bit above league averages from 3. Look at the attempts. That matters. The playoffs are not built on large sample sizes. Sometimes, we can play the shooting variance game. We can say that things should progress to the mean. And you know what? If the Cavs played a 50-game series with the Orlando Magic, I guarantee they would eventually start shooting like they could. Unfortunately, it's a 7-game series, which only enhances the pressure that some of these guys are feeling that can't make shots. And shooters, let me tell you, are some of the most, what's the right word here? Let's say superstitious. Superstitious is one word, and not just superstitious as in, like, let me put my right sock on at the same time before the game every time. Just like, if a few start to miss, if a few shots don't go, sometimes a shooter thinks they'll never go in again for a little bit. Like, their mindset is very fragile, and so I think that, like, yes, we can pick apart how the Cavs are getting their shots, how the offense is being designed, but at the end of the day, if the guys who are out there to either punctuate the play or grease the lanes for the main characters of the play are not doing what they're supposed to do, that throws a big monkey wrench in there that nobody anticipated.
Mm-hmm. It also needs to be said that the Cavs are operating a lot of times in the half court against a very stingy, very long, very athletic defense in the Magic. It was the number 3 defense in the regular season, and they have been really, really good in the playoffs. And they were going to be even better in the playoffs because the Magic know all of the Cavs sets, right? They know the Cavs better than anybody because it's very, very difficult to surprise any team at this time of year. There's Tristan Thompson on the sidelines calling out Orlando Magic sets, right? Marcus Morris Sr. calling out Orlando Magic sets because that's the kind of game planning that goes into the postseason compared to the regular season. So when a team has an understanding of what you want to do, how you want to go about it, and they have all of your weaknesses scouted and accounted for, it becomes, against that caliber defense, it becomes very, very difficult to consistently execute. And the Cavs are learning that the hard way.
Yeah, and like you said, Chris, they were number 3 in the NBA in defense. Talking about the Orlando Magic, they're number 2 in the playoffs. They were number 3 in the regular season. They're number 2 in the playoffs.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, now we're gonna get to the craziness even more so, and I'm going to have to speed run this because we are recording this. This is already an hour in, and it's 11:36 p.m. on Monday. So we're going to speed run this. Chris asked our subtexters to give their adjustments, trying not to be silly on what the Cavs could do going into Game 5. And let me just tell you, these are a little bit silly. I'm not even going to click into these. I'm literally going to just try and run through all of them that I see. All right. Y'all just going to have to wait till I'm done. I'm going to tell you when I'm done.
All
right. Get Maryland as soon as DG shows he's still trash. Yes, that is the very first one. Okay. Next. Make adjustments quicker and quit waiting 2 possessions too late to figure things out. I would play Merrill longer stretches. I don't see how he could be worse than some of the other Cavs players. It seems like they need to push back more against the Magic. I would urge the players to make shots other than just dunks. Start Marcus Morris Sr. at small forward for a bigger, more staunchy play. If the starters are not in foul trouble, especially Allen, have them play more. Forget the 8-man rotation. All players are in the mix. Pound the boards. No excuse for being out-rebounded like that. The guards are having trouble getting open looks. Mitchell is a Merrill fan, right? All-star jersey and oh my goodness. And all-star jersey and all is part of his lack of effort, frustration with JP. Oh my goodness. Play the starters more than 40 minutes. Take away just about all of George Niang's minutes. Sam Merrill in for Donovan Mitchell, Darius Garland, and Max Strus at least 10 minutes a game. Bring Sam Merrill off the bench before George Niang.
Can I address that one really quick?
Mm-hmm.
Because those things aren't correlated. And this is where, sometimes reality gets lost on people. George Niang's a power forward, right? George Niang is getting every single minute that he has gotten in this series as the backup power forward. He backs up Evan Mobley. So if the idea is no more Niang, that the only way that means more Sam Merrill, the only way, is Isaac Okoro to the 4, or Max Strus to the 4, or Karis LeVert to the 4 in a small ball look, with Sam Merrill as the 2 or the 3. So if you're cool with taking George Niang completely out of the rotation, then basically what you're suggesting, unless you play Evan Mobley every single minute at the power forward spot, basically what you're suggesting is go small and play one of Isaac Okoro or Karis LeVert or Max Strus as the small ball power forward in the non-Mobley minutes. Do people understand what that means in this series against the Magic? Can it be done? Sure, I think so. Give it a try. See what happens. But they are really, really big across the board. And their small ball is not traditional small ball because it's still giants across the board. So the Cavs going small, in some ways plays into some of the advantages that the Magic already have. And if some of the issues that the Cavs had in games 3 and 4 was rebounding the basketball, giving up second chance opportunities, do you think that's going to improve with one of Max Strus, George Niang, or Max Strus, Karis LeVert, or Isaac Okoro playing the small ball 4 spot? So there is a give and take when it comes to playing Sam Merrill or just eliminating George Niang completely from the rotation. I'm not saying that it's not going to happen. I think the Cavs have to consider that. I think they have to weigh the pros and cons of George on offense versus defense. And I think they have to determine, would they gain enough by going to that Sam Merrill small ball lineup type thing? Or do we keep leaning on George even though he's not making shots because he's still providing some, emphasis on some, other things that make a positive impact? So this idea that Sam Merrill's just going to get George Niang's minutes, they're not correlated, and it's not that simple. It means other things have to happen around the team. Maybe even Marcus Morris playing the 4 instead of George Niang, if you want to go that direction. But Sam Merrill, George Niang, that has never made sense, and everybody continues to bring that up because there's a trickle-down effect to that kind of move.
That's why when you said, do people understand that doesn't work, I was trying not to bust out laughing because of how many times we have had this conversation over this podcast. And I continue to have it in the media room at times, too, with other reporters. They're like, well, Sam Merrill needs to get minutes. And I'm like, for who?
It's very easy to say George Niang stinks right now, and he's not making shots, and he's not providing an offensive boost, and he's made 1 3-pointer in this entire series, and it's when a game was already well decided and well out of hand. Like, everybody can admit that, right? But saying George Niang stinks, play Sam Merrill, like, that's apples and oranges here.
So, obviously, when I say for who, in this case, with Darius Garland playing the way that he does right now, it's an option to switch Sam Merrill and Darius Garland because Darius and Sam play the same position. Are they both small and have defensive weaknesses? Yes. So, we'll see what they have to do. I'm going to keep reading through this list really quickly. Jimmy, I know you look like you had something you wanted to add. Do you want to do that now or you want to wait?
I mean, it's just funny that every franchise has a Sam Merrill, right? Like, this is a guy who gets spot opportunities during the regular season, maybe makes the most of those opportunities, and then the playoffs start, you have to shorten your rotations, and the fan base doesn't understand that at all. I think that's funny.
There's also the idea that the one texter said it can't be any worse. Yo, what if it's worse? Like, there is not a guarantee that these other moves that haven't been tried by J.B. Bickerstaff is going to yield positive results, right? Like, Marcus Morris Sr. could be worse than George Niang. That is a distinct possibility, right? The Cavs as a team could be worse if they're forced to go to a small ball lineup to incorporate Sam Merrill a little bit more, right? That is a distinct possibility. So this idea that the moves that haven't been seen are going to yield positive results because you haven't had an opportunity to see them fail, it doesn't mean that they can't be worse. They certainly can be worse.
All right. I can't even say last couple. There's still a bunch. All right, so the last one I did was I might bring Merrill off the bench before Niang. So now, the next one, there are no adjustments that will help. Box out and crash the boards. Put the ball in Mitchell's hands more. Increase Allen's minutes to 40 plus or whatever he can handle. Get Tristan Thompson a few early minutes to set the tone if and or when needed. Need hard, intentional cuts and quick action / passing. Get away from the 2 in the corners and start having the guards move the ball. I don't think it's silly. Take Darius out of the starting lineup.
For who? Who is the guy that is sitting on the bench that has had a great series that has
Sam
earned an
Merrill,
opportunity
Chris.
to start?
Sam Merrill, come on. Haven't you been listening?
I forgot.
Okay, so I want to preface, but I think I said it at the very beginning, but like right now when I'm fast reading, I'm not even like clicking in and reading the whole thing. I'm reading like what it says in like the little blob that it gives me and then continuing.
Yeah.
But so this is what he fully said. I don't think it's he or she, I don't know. I don't think it's silly. He, she, or they. I keep doing that. He, she, or they. I don't think it's silly. Take Darius out of the starting lineup and stagger his minutes with Donovan Mitchell. Move Okoro or LeVert into his spots, depending on need, offense or defense. And move Strus to the 2. Okay. So, okay. Next one.
We watching a different series. Has Karis LeVert been good?
In spurts, not in last game.
Has Isaac Okoro been good?
No. He's put up Tony Snell numbers. He's been getting cardio.
What are we talking about here?
I'm going to keep going. We have the shooters, but they have to be moving. That's literally all that's said. Play Morris. Niang hasn't played weak in any of the games. I can't believe these are back-to-back and they're not on the same person. Play Morris over Niang. He isn't bringing anything to the table.
I get that one. I think it's something. I'm not saying I would go that way if I was JB, but I think it has to be weighed. The pros and cons of that particular move have to be weighed, given how disastrous George Niang has been as a shooter, and how much he gets targeted on the defensive end of the floor. Go on.
Next one. To coach. Move without the ball. Do what he did when Darius and Evan were out. Next one is, unless Morrison is an extreme defensive liability, I would play him. Next, Darius Garland as 6-man. As Jimmy has been saying, from Sam Merrill.
There you go.
But this person didn't spell Sam Merrill's name right. So it says, how about starting Sam Mitchell in place of Max Strus? Okay. And the last two are, my adjustment would be to try to recapture the January Magic and try to get Darius Garland more catch and shoot opportunities.
The Marcus Morris
That
thing.
one.
Yeah.
I'm good with that last
Yeah.
one. Yeah, I mean, like, take him off the ball a little bit more. Where the only problem with that is in the playoffs, a lot of the officials allow the off-ball stuff to go a little bit more, right? So there's a lot of grabbing, there's a lot of holding, there's a lot of physicality, there's a lot of jersey tugging going on. And Darius, he's not the most physical guy, right? He's not the strongest guy. And if he's going to be hounded by Gary Harris, Jalen Suggs, it might be hard for him to kind of detach, and it may frustrate him a little bit with some of the contact and some of the no calls that happen. That I don't know that playing him off the ball is going to allow him to get those opportunities. You know what I mean? I think playing him off the ball, even though it's intriguing because you put Donovan on the ball a little bit more, it could just neutralize Darius because the opponent could just grab and hold him and not allow him to break free. I don't know.
And then again, everything has a cost, right? So it's not it's not just that Darius wouldn't be getting open. It's now he's more tired on defense. Right. Now he doesn't have as much juice when he does have the ball in his hands, and when Donovan's sitting on the bench, he's kind of it in terms of shot creation. So,
yeah.
I want to get overall reactions from you two of all of the craziness or the quote-unquote adjustments, whichever you want to call it, from the subtexters that we got. And Jimmy, I know Chris has been jumping in a couple of times, so I want to give you the floor first, and then we will end the podcast with Chris's overall reactions.
Yeah, man, build the Sam Merrill statue. That's my first takeaway. He is to Cleveland what the Suns want Devin Booker to be in Phoenix. I'm with Chris. I think the Marcus Morris thing makes sense to me. I also think it's probably one of the adjustments that's being weighed heaviest, just because we know how tight that relationship is between JB and Marcus Morris. Just say, do we remember why Marcus Morris is on the Cavs?
Right.
Because he was available toward the end of the season. So, again, all cards are on the table here. It's do or die time. Try stuff. But to Chris's point, just because Marcus Morris is different doesn't mean he will be better.
Chris, overall reactions?
Well, it's clear that everybody believes in Sam Merrill's ability to make a positive impact in this series. And again, I do think there's a place for him. I think his gravity, I think his shooting, I think the attention that he commands from a defense, I think the constant movement is something that is intriguing, and it's something that at various points during the regular season has certainly raised the Cavs' offensive ceiling. But this is also the time of year where weaknesses get exposed for a player. Weaknesses for a player get exploited relentlessly. And it gives Orlando a matchup to hunt on the offensive end of the floor. I do think they would go to it repeatedly, and I think you have to weigh what the Cavs would be giving up on the defensive end of the floor and what they would potentially be gaining on offense. And if they determine that it's more in favor of the offense, then fine, go with it. I talked in the previous podcast about trying the three-man combination of Donovan Mitchell, Sam Merrill, and Max Strus in short bursts, just to try and create a different kind of trigger on the offensive end of the floor, a different look for the Magic to have to deal with when the Cavs are on the offensive end of the floor. But I think there are physical limitations and athletic limitations for Sam in this particular series, a 7-game series, that I think are obviously concerning to the Cavs coaches and JB Bickerstaff in particular, which is why his minutes have been so low in the first 4 games of this series. But I do understand why people believe that he could be an asset, especially on the offensive end of the floor, especially on a team that has talked in the last couple of days about being better on offense and pushing up the three-point attempts a little bit more. But understand that if JB goes to that he is going to give Sam Merrill a short leash, because Sam has not, to the same level as some of these other guys on this roster, earned the long leash. He doesn't have the same leash as Darius, right? Darius has earned a longer one. Darius has earned more of a benefit of the doubt. Darius has earned more trust from the coaching staff, including JB. So that's the way things go. If he goes in the game and he makes an impact and he's doing all the things that you want him to do on the offensive end of the floor and he's not getting scorched on defense, then it's something that JB will continue to lean into, and he'll continue to ride the hot hand and ride a lineup that works. So it's not surprising to me that Sam Merrill seems to be the player that a lot of fans have latched onto when it comes to this particular series.
One more time, I just want to remind everyone, spacing is cool, but you still have to make the shots. Right. And while Sam Merrill, I know, is an incredible three-point shooter, he hasn't been playing a lot. Shooting is a rhythm game, and so it might take him a little bit to warm up out there. And to Chris's point about a short leash, I don't know that he has a ton of time to warm up.
Mm.
That's all good points. And I want to go to the George Niang point, because we talk about his three-point shooting and what he was paid and brought here to do and how important that is. And we talked before Game 3, when they went to Orlando, and him talking about his shooting woes and how one shot has a one-shot life, and he needs to be able to be ready to take the next one. He took 1 3-pointer in Game 4. So that doesn't show me that he's sticking to that point, that he's going to be ready to take the next one. So that puts him in a scenario, in a situation where is his confidence wavering? Is he going to be ready when he gets another open look? Or is he going to be able to take a contested look? Obviously, we've seen him at practice today taking 3-pointers. Chris posted a video of it on our YouTube Shorts. You should check it out. And I think it's important for those guys, especially Max, who we saw go through an extensive workout today on outside the arc and beyond the arc, and trying to get his 3-point rhythm back again, doing those things as he usually does. But it looked like he was even getting more work in today specifically behind the arc. And those guys are going to be big. Sam Merrill, like Jimmy said, doesn't have that long to get into a rhythm. He also hadn't been hitting shots in the opportunities that he's been given as of late. Obviously, also because he hasn't been getting the same minutes as he was earlier in the season when the Cavs were down their guards. And obviously also Craig Porter Jr. is not available right now because of his injury. And we haven't gotten an update on him yet. Right. So I think Sam Merrill is obviously an option. As after I did the feature on him, I've learned of the confidence that he has in himself, the opportunity that he wants and thinks he deserves, and how he's grown from Utah State to where he is now to be the shooter that he is. So obviously there is potential for him to come on the scene and kind of help lead the 3-point unit back to what it needed to be, or what it was in the beginning of the season when he got more minutes. But I really do think it all depends on the situation, how Darius Garland's playing, how Donovan Mitchell's playing, who's guarding Sam, how much energy he's exerting on the defensive end, because, like we said, every possession brings a lot of turmoil, basically. It's just because he's going to be getting attacked on that end of the floor. So it's all up to what happens in each given scenario. Do I think Sam Merrill is important to the series? Yes. We said that before the series started, that it was going to be dependent on what the Cavs needed. But we'll see. But
I also think there's only, you know what, guys? I think there's only so much adjusting that a coach can do. At some point, like, players got to play. When Max Strus is averaging 6 points per game and shooting 38.5% from the field and 17.6% from three-point range, and he's supposed to be one of the best shooters that the Cavs have. He's supposed to be one of the guys that they can rely on in the postseason because of his big game experience. When that's happening, there's only so much adjusting you can do. When you don't have one of your chess pieces that would certainly help in this series against Orlando and Dean Wade, there's only so much adjusting that you can do. When Karis LeVert is giving you 8.3 points off the bench, 8.3 on 33% shooting, there's only so much adjusting you can do. When Darius Garland is averaging 12 points in a series, Darius is capable of big scoring nights. Darius is capable of being an offensive engine. When he's giving you that, there's only so much adjusting you can do. Isaac Okoro's averaging 3.5 points in 4 games. George Niang, 3.5 points. Like, at some point, these dudes just have to play to their standard. They have to play to their level. And if they don't, it just might be curtains.
I think I have ended this podcast every time with something fun, because we get into a lot of seriousness here. The only other person on this Cavs team that has an NBA championship outside of Tristan Thompson is Sam Merrill.
Yes, he does.
So we talk about playoff experience. How many games
did he play in that finals?
In the finals? I'm not sure. Okay. In the postseason, 8. In his rookie year. With the Milwaukee Bucks when they won that championship.
Mayweather is going crazy right now. They're hooting and hollering at that statistic.
But yeah, so talk about playoff experience. There you go, fans. That's something else you could throw at the arguments talking about why Sam Merrill should be playing.
Tweet about it on
NBA champions.
Tweet about it on Sam Merrill Muse. Make the Twitter account.
Oh my God. All right. But until next time, guys, that'll wrap up today's episode of the Wine and Gold Talk podcast. But remember to become a Cavs insider and interact with Chris and me by subscribing to Subtext. This is where you can leave your questions and also answer questions that you might have seen from Chris or me on any given basis, and also join a Cavs community. Talk trash, get into it, and also get some insight while you're at it. To do so, you can sign up for a 14-day free trial or visit cleveland.com/Cavs and click on the blue bar at the top of the page. If you don't like it, that's fine. All you have to do is text the word STOP. It's easy, but we can tell you that the people who sign up stick around, because this is the best way to get insider coverage on the Cavs from me and Chris. This isn't just our podcast, it's your podcast. And the only way to have your voice heard is through Subtext. Y'all be safe. We out.